Let me ask you something. What if I told you that a tiny little strip of water, just 33 kilometers across at its narrowest, basically holds the entire global economy in its hands? Well, today, we're going to dive into exactly that, the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most important choke point. I mean, it sounds a little crazy, right? How can a passage this narrow really have the power to send shockwaves through the whole world's economy?
Well, the answer is both simple and just staggering, because nearly one fifth of the entire planet's daily oil supply has to squeeze right through here.
And when you have that much energy flowing through one spot, it means what happens there has a very direct and very real effect on you.
Let's make this really personal, because this isn't some abstract issue happening halfway across the world. A disruption in the strait immediately sends oil prices soaring. And that means you're paying more to fill up your car, your heating bill gets bigger, that flight you're looking at gets more expensive, and prices for almost everything you buy start to creep up. It's a direct hit to your wallet. So to really understand why it's so critical, we've got to zoom in and look at the map. Because here, geography is everything. The Strait of Hormuz is the textbook definition of a maritime choke point, and it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a narrow channel that funnels a massive amount of traffic into a single tight spot, and that gives it immense strategic power. This incredibly tight space is sandwiched between Iran to the north and Oman and the UAE to the south. It is the only way by sea out of the Persian Gulf. But get this, the actual shipping lanes that the world's biggest tankers have to use, they're only 3 kilometers wide in each direction. That is not a lot of wiggle room. And this is what makes the strait so uniquely vulnerable. Other choke points, like the Suez Canal, they can be bypassed. It's a much longer and more expensive trip around Africa, but it's an option. For the Strait of Hormuz? Nope. There is no viable commercial alternative. For oil tankers trying to leave the Gulf, this is the only way out. Period. So because of this unique geography, you get this incredible dependence on one single spot. You can really think of it as the main artery for the entire world's economy. Every single day, about 17.2 million barrels of oil flow through this narrow channel. That volume is so massive, it's almost impossible to replace if that flow were ever disrupted. So who are the key players in this high-stakes game? Well, on one side, you have the world's biggest energy exporters, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, the UAE, Qatar. And on the other, you've got the world's hungriest energy consumers, China, India, Japan, South Korea. All of them are critically, and I mean critically, dependent on this single waterway. Just check out these numbers. A staggering 2/3 of all the oil that flows through the Strait of Hormuz is headed to just 4 major economies in Asia. This isn't just some regional issue. It is the absolute bedrock of Asia's industrial power. Now, when you concentrate this much economic importance into one tiny spot, you are going to get military tension. And the situation here is, to put it mildly, incredibly tense. And what's really fascinating here is the completely different military strategies at play. On one side, you have Iran, which controls the northern coast. They use an asymmetric approach. Think swarms of fast boats, naval mines, drones. Their goal isn't to win a conventional war, but just to cause enough disruption to make anyone think twice. And on the other side, you've got the massive conventional power of the U.S. Fifth Fleet, whose entire job is to guarantee freedom of navigation. This whole dynamic creates this very fragile balance of power, what some call a deterrence equilibrium. It's a standoff where both sides know they could inflict massive damage on the other and on the global economy. In a weird way, that very tension is the only thing keeping things stable and preventing your gas prices from going through the roof. So let's make this even more concrete with a real-world example. Why is a country like India, thousands of kilometers away, watching the Strait of Hormuz so incredibly closely? Well, for India, one of the fastest-growing economies on Earth, this isn't some distant problem. It's a fundamental economic lifeline. Over 80% of its oil is imported, and a huge chunk of that comes directly through this one single choke point. So if that strait were blocked, it would set off a direct and really painful domino effect. First, global oil prices would surge. That means India's import bill would skyrocket. This would lead directly to higher fuel prices and inflation for everybody, which ultimately slams the brakes on the entire country's economic growth. So for India, it's this constant, careful balancing act. They use diplomacy to try and keep things calm in the Gulf, while at the same time trying to protect their own trade routes and diversify their energy sources away from this one very vulnerable point.
And this really brings us to the core issue here. The stability of this critical artery is far from guaranteed. You could even say it might be the most fragile link in our entire global supply chain.
And here's the really unsettling part. You don't even need a full-blown war to cause chaos. Just the threat of an attack is enough. Insurance costs for tankers spike, shipping gets more expensive, and global markets get very, very nervous. The fear itself becomes a weapon. And all of this leaves us with a final, pretty provocative question. In a world that seems to be getting more and more fragile, what does it mean for our interconnected global economy when its single most vital artery is also one of its most volatile? The answer to that is going to shape global security and economics for decades to come.